the last video about unit studies, I tried to go over a number of options for building a unit up. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to squeeze it all down into a week. So the book I'm going to use this time is Blueberries for Sal by Robert McCloskey, who also wrote Make Way for Ducklings. Sometimes this one is an award winner. This one must be an older print version, so it doesn't have it. This is a story about a little girl, Sal, and her mother, and how they go picking for blueberries on Blueberry Hill. And Sal is eating all the blueberries. She puts them in her basket and it goes, or her bucket, and it goes kaplunk, kaplink, kaplunk. But then she's eating all her mom's berries, and so her mom tells her, little Sal, go pick blueberries by yourself so that I can have enough to put into cans for the winter. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mountain, Little Bear and his mother have just woken up and they are going to get nice and fat for the winter time. So Little Bear falls behind and the mother bear thinks that she hears her baby, but it turns out she hears little Sal, and she knows better than to trust a human. So she goes wandering off looking for her baby. Meanwhile, mother thinks she hears little Sal, but she sees a bear and she knows better than to trust even a little bear. And so she goes off looking for her baby, and little Sal and her mother, that's how they get their blueberries, and they go home. Little Bear and her mother get all fed, and so they both go home and they make their canned blueberries. So that's the story. And this gives us a lot of options. So this might be a nice way to organize it. This is a planner put out by homegrownlearners.com. She basically puts the weeks down here, or the days of the week there, and then the different subjects here. This might be more subjects than what you want to need to use. She has a list for supplies and then extra supplies down at the bottom. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to put into my boxes here. So the first thing I want to make sure that I cover is language arts. And that means working on retelling. So we're going to do a little bit of it each day. So one day I'm going to ask her questions, and it's going to be things like, oh, who was in the story? I'm not going to use big words like characters. I'm just going to ask, where did they go instead of setting. So it gets them used to the pieces of stories without having the formal words yet. Then the next day I'm going to have her retell it in her own words. And then finally, later in the week, we will reenact the story in play. So we probably make a blanket den and then pretend that we're going out to look for berries. And I like to put this later in the week so that way they've really got the story down pat, because otherwise sometimes play doesn't come off very well. But it's nice to give them the chance to reenact the story somehow. Sometimes you can do that with finger puppets or whatever, but this week we're just going to play act it. Then I want to make sure that we get in some letter practice. So we're going to do a B page. I'm going to use blue for blueberries. I'm going to have her write the letter B in some blueberry yogurt. Then she always enjoys mazes. I just pull up a maze and then I put on clip art for that to match this. And then I always like to have a story or a poem, a song, so that way they can be practicing those patterns. So this is one I found called A Little Brown Bear. A little brown bear went in search for some honey. Isn't it funny? A bear wanting honey. He sniffed at the breeze and he listened for bees. And would you believe it? He even climbed trees. Or we're also going to do, I'm going on a bear hunt. That's a nice one to do too. For science, I want to make sure that I cover lots of things about bears. Dens, hibernation, what do bears eat, life cycle. So I've got 4 things there, so I'm going to need to hit that almost every single day. For social studies, I'm probably going to skip it this time, but if I really wanted to, I could talk about how Winnie the Pooh was inspired by a real-life bear who was adopted by a soldier. I think it was during World War II. Or I could talk about like zoo adoptions, but I think I'm just going to pass on that. For art, I found this cool print off that this woman had, and she wanted you to use like oil pastels on here and like paint all this. I'm just going to have her paint this with watercolors, and we're going to drop salts on it to give these nice little bursts on there, and then we'll cut this out and put it on a black sheet of paper, and it will look really nice. Then we want to have some go along books. So these ones are great. Sound box series. This one's My Bee Sound Box. And the great thing about these ones is that they are read with me stories. So you point to the words as you read them, and then when you get to the picture, they have to say what it is. And so it gets them in the practice of reading. And this one's cute. Then, like I said, I want to cover dens. So a den is a bed for a bear. And this one was really cute too. Like it made us laugh a little bit. And it had really sweet pictures in it. And then covering bears in general, brown bears. And then oh goodness, how can you do this one without doing brown bear, what do you see? And that one's a nice pattern rhythm sound book. So we'll definitely do that one. I want to throw in cooking, especially because they were getting these blueberries to go cooking. So we'll probably do blueberry muffins because my kids don't like to eat like pie or jelly. One of my friends, she did this unit with my daughter, and they made cans of blueberry jelly, and like my daughter was super impressed, but then she didn't want to eat it. So, oh, and then the other big one that you want to cover is math. So it's easy to do some sort of counting with this. I thought about using real blueberries, but I just don't have time to go to the store. I've got a little metal pail, so I'll probably ask her questions like, if you pick 2 blueberries, kaplink, kaplink, and 1 blueberry, kaplunk, how many blueberries do you have? And then have her count what's in the pail. So I could probably make up cards for this, but I'll probably just ask her that because it's easier. It makes it seem more like play. But if your kid was younger, you could just have them work on counting blueberries. So there you go. And then usually I might skip a Bible verse that goes directly with this, but I found a nice one that fits. So Job 9:9 talks about he is the maker of the bear and Orion, the Pleiades, and the constellations of the south. So I would want to cover that one so that way we could talk about how the Dipper is actually a bear. So that's always a neat one. And then building off of this, next week, you know, I've done bees before, so instead I'm going to start talking about other kinds of bears. And somebody just gave me this book the other day. If you tell people you homeschool, people just drop stuff off on your doorstep all the time. So they gave me this one about a polar bear that is adopted at the zoo. So I'm going to cover polar bears, and then panda bears, and spectacle bears, because those ones live in South America. And that way we can talk about bears that live all around the world and talk about the 7 continents. So that is a great way to spin off of this. So I'm just going to take my planner, fill this all in, and there you have it. It's not a big deal.